The world's top tennis star, Novak Djokovic, has spent his arrival in Australia grounded in hotel detention after being stopped at Melbourne Airport. His hopes of competing in this month's Australian Open dashed.
Ultimately, I think almost all the responsibility here lies with Novak Djokovic. He is the one who could have made life so much easier for himself by just getting vaccinated, and he stubbornly refused to do that, and he's in this predicament because of himself, ultimately.
I have no sympathy for Mr Djokovic's position on vaccines. I think it's both misleading and dangerous. But having said that, the way Mr Djokovic's case has been handled has been really quite shameful and inefficient.
Djokovic has been a vocal opponent of COVID vaccination, and previously he's been coy about whether he'd compete in this year's competition because of the Open's tough vaccine mandate. After a game of will he or won't he, Djokovic confirmed on social media on Tuesday that he was heading down under, claiming he'd received an exemption. That appears to be under a Tennis Australia and Victorian government process where unvaccinated people wanting to attend the Australian Open apply for a medical exemption. Two separate medical panels assessed 26 applications, including Djokovic's. All applications were anonymous to ensure a fair system.
There's a big breakdown in communication between Tennis Australia and maybe local government authorities here who cooperated with them on their exemption policies and their exemption decisions, and the federal government, who clearly had other things going.
Make it 9 for Novak!
Like most foreign arrivals, Djokovic also applied for a visa to enter Australia. The federal government, which controls Australia's international borders, granted him one. But yesterday, the Prime Minister said responsibility for exemptions lay with the state government.
Well, that is a matter for the Victorian government. They have provided him with an exemption to come to Australia. And so we then act in accordance with that decision.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how it works. States provide exemptions for people to enter on those bases, and that's been happening for the last 2 years. So there's no change to that arrangement. The Victorian government have made their decision on that.
Someone issued a visa to everyone that's come to Australia. It's not the state. The Commonwealth issues those visas.
Former Deputy Secretary of the Immigration Department, Abul Rizvi, says the federal government is at fault for granting Djokovic the visa in the first place.
Mr Djokovic's visa should have been either refused at the point of application or not decided until the Australian government was satisfied he met all the requirements. The government instead granted a visa which effectively signalled to Mr Djokovic that you are allowed you have been given a legal right to enter Australia. Mr Djokovic was seriously misled.
The Australian Border Force can reject arrivals at the airport if they don't meet entry requirements, and that's what happened to Djokovic even though he had a valid visa.
If there was information that Mr Djokovic had not provided, then the Australian government should have asked for that information before the visa was granted.
Djokovic has previously refused to publicly declare his vaccination status, but this morning the Prime Minister revealed Border Force blocked the star because he was not fully vaccinated and did not have a medical exemption.
If you're not double vaccinated and you're not an Australian resident or citizen, well, you can't come. He was unable to furnish that proof to the Border Force officers at the airport last night, and they're the rules.
Scott Morrison says the government told Tennis Australia about Australia's entry requirements in a letter dated November last year.
This is from the Minister for Health. I can confirm that people who contracted COVID-19 within the past 6 months and seek to enter Australia from overseas and have not received 2 doses of a TGA-approved or TGA-recognised vaccine are not considered fully vaccinated.
The government has been quick to make an example of previous high-profile cases, such as Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, who breached Australia's biosecurity laws. But the Prime Minister says that's not the case with players like Djokovic.
That's how Border Force works. So they're not singled out at all.
It's pretty clear, I think, that Novak Djokovic has become this ultimate political football for both sides to kick around and show that they're being tough on COVID exemptions.
For the Australian Open, it's yet another messy start to the season. Last year, the tournament and the Victorian government were criticised for helping tennis stars enter the country, when thousands of Australians remain stranded overseas because of border restrictions.
People are seeing Novak Djokovic as the personification of lots of frustrations with how things have gone in the last 2 years. And it's a really unique situation. I don't think anywhere in the world besides Australia has sports, and certainly not tennis, become such a symbol and a cause of division, really. It's really been remarkable how this has become a flashpoint here.
The way this has been handled is a blight on Australia's reputation in terms of being able to continue to run the Australian Open. I don't think the international tennis authorities will look on Australia very favourably if it continues to operate its visa system in such a haphazard way.
At Melbourne Airport, fans have rallied behind Djokovic, who is now appealing the government's decision in court.
And it's not entirely clear to me that the requirements for cancellation have actually been met. And that is what will be contested in the courts.
This is effectively the first tournament and certainly the first Grand Slam to require vaccination for players to compete. But it's going to be happening more and more around the globe as countries decide that they're not going to allow unvaccinated people to enter their immigration. He is going to have to, if he stays unvaccinated, rely on special exemptions everywhere he goes, to the US, to the UK, various other countries that are making much stricter rules about this. And if he chooses to stay unvaccinated through all that, it's going to be a continued, repeated uphill climb for him.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.